And next we have Stellar Survival Quest 0.5, a sci-fi lit RPG written by Jolf Whitemage. It is 229 pages, 99 cents, and it's available on Kindle Limited, and here's the author's description. 5 years ago, an unknown game company came from nowhere to release a first-generation virtual reality pod in their bundled game Stellar Survival Quest. The technology was 20 years ahead of anything else currently out, sending shockwaves through the entertainment industry. Now, a new game system is not normally world-shattering, especially when players reported not being able to recall their time playing. The company made claims of keeping the game world pure and not allowing microgaming. However, when that first generation of gamers left the gaming pods, they knew things they did not before. Skills learned in-game translate to real-life skills. Overnight, the world was thrown on its heels. A new player could log into the game, be given a job, and in some way decided by the game, and come out an Ivy League educated scientist or special ops level soldier. Nathan Tyrone Rogers, or Bubba, to his friends and family awoke on a small transport freshly landed on an ocean space station. As the first humans to be spawned outside of the solar system, Nathan is vastly unprepared and overwhelmed for the task at hand, with a cryptic message that he needs to claim the solar system of Epsilon Indi before one of the other 12 species also spawn in the system, some of which will supposedly be hostile to humanity. He attempts to survival in the completely hostile environment of space, all the while trying to choose a path for himself, avoid being eaten by monstrous alien women, and growing more and more annoyed with his real self back on Earth. Then there's also just this disclaimer saying that the book contains adult themes, mild harem themes, base building, growth and strategy elements. If you're easily offended by anything, you've been warned. And that last bit really only applies to one point, which we'll talk about in the review. Okay, the story actually starts out pretty good. It loses me near the end a little bit, but it's still enjoyable on the whole. The novel begins with the main character finding himself without a memory of his personal life or history, but recording himself saying that he's playing a game that's not really a game. If you heard me read that novel description, that's essentially an abbreviated version of the beginning of this novel. There's a huge section in here that just is an info dump about the game purpose, its setup, history stuff. It goes on a little too long in my opinion, and it might lose some readers, but the information does set up like the elements of the game, and the survival elements. Basically this story is a space survival lit RPG story, and that's a really good summary of it. There are lots of deaths and respawns, and the main character tries to survive even the first few moments of being on an abandoned space station that is open to the void of space. He figures it out, and then most of the story is about him figuring out the game system, crafting, repairing the station to survive, and using the game mechanics to accomplish his goals. There's also a minor story thread about things he and other players do in the game impacting the real world Earth, but it's definitely a minor element, maybe like a series consequence thing. There are a few other kinds of stories like this, so that if you like them, you might like this as well, including like Universe Online, the first book in that series specifically, Planet Bound, I wrote that one, full disclosure, and His Staff. Those all have similar kind of concepts of like people finding themselves on space stations or alien planets, whatever, and having to survive and using the game mechanics to do so. So if you like any of those stories, like I said, you might like this one as well. For me, I also want to make sure that I note that there is this weird out of left field sex scene at the 72% markish, and the story kind of takes this weird harem twist towards the end, which is definitely unexpected because nothing in the previous portions of that kind of said that was going to happen. So it's kind of a weird thing to happen here. Not that I dispute the author to write whatever he wants, just that was, and it's kind of this weird little section, and after it kind of goes back to the survival space RPG stuff. So I'm not really sure what the point is. It kind of maybe makes sense in the context given in the story, but I'm like, that was a really graphic sex scene, and it doesn't show up again. So, okay. But for me, that gets a score of 7.3 out of 10. The sex stuff is really skippable. So there you go. I still enjoyed it. I just skipped the sex scene. That's the score of 7.3 out of 10. For Stellar Survival Quest 0.5, a lit RPG, a sci-fi lit RPG. There you go.